Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome to Monday. It's another episode of Rules of Engagement, and a little bit of a different time slot for you guys. Of course, we're used to airing our stuff at 5 p.m. Eastern. Rules of Engagement followed that. Now we're starting at 8 p.m. Eastern with WCS content, but Rules of Engagement will always be after whatever content we have live. So going forward, it's always going to be at around this time, right after the WCS matches conclude. So today we got a nice little episode. I'm going to be going over the Goswser vs. Bomber series from the MLG Winter Championships, of course. This was a round 1 matchup. Bomber did end up winning, but there's a lot of cool tactics and strategies used in this series that I really want to point out to you guys so you guys can improve your skills and knowledge of Starcraft 2. We're going to take a look at Game 1 of Bomber vs. Goswser, then Game 2, and then Game 4. And also remember, tweet me any questions you have at axslav or leave them in YouTube comments. I'll answer those in the Q&A section at the end of the show. Let's go into game number 1, though. A couple things I want to talk about. Fast third, Zerg versus Terran. Then we'll talk about how to execute a massive attack when you really want to overwhelm your opponent. And then talk a little bit about defending drop play from a Zerg perspective. Let's jump into this game, though. We're going to start at 7-minute mark, skip some of the opening la-di-da. Going over what happened in the opening, though, really quickly. We can see that the Terran player Bomber opened with the Reaper expand, of course, into a third base. Hellions, the very, very standard Terran versus Zerg opening. Now, what Goswser's doing, we can see, is he's taking a fast third base, right? Relatively fast, not super fast. But if you want to take a relatively fast third base, you can do it as soon as your speed leans take map control from the Terran player. Go ahead and build yourself that hatchery. And then it's often good. I mean, you don't have to. You can surely knock out roaches. But if you're not insanely good at controlling those speed leans against Hellions, I'd recommend following up your third base with roaches. The reason why roaches are a great follow-up is they're very useful at keeping Hellions at bay. Queens can do this as well. You can get a lot of queens. But roaches can do it even off creep. So you can really push those Hellions back off the creep, which allows you to spread the creep tumors a little more effectively. You can see here, as soon as the roaches come in, the Hellions have to run away, and the queens can go lay those creep tumors. So fast third bases are great Zerg versus Terran. Follow them up with like Goswser did with the roach play. Now we're just going to speed through the replay a little bit faster now. Both players sit back and macro, of course, Terran. Usually when you go the Reaper, you take a fast third. He's doing that. He's going to be passive for the next few minutes as he macros up off of barracks, getting tanks as well. A very defensive formation. On the other hand, Goswser doing a similar thing. One interesting thing that Goswser is doing, though, to take note, no Evo Chambers. He's getting a lair. He's getting actually 2 Bane nests. That's a mistake. He only meant to get 1. But he's not getting that many Evo Chambers. He's only getting them just now, fairly late in the process. Why is he doing this? He's getting the late Evo Chambers because he wants to really work. He really wants to work on making a lot of units, right? Prioritize on quantity of units over quality. And the reason he wants to get such a large quantity of units, as we can see in its army tab, he's actually ahead of the Terran, which usually isn't super common at this point in Zerg vs. Terran. He wants to be ahead because he wants to execute a massive attack against his opponent's third base when Bomber does try to take at third base. We can see Bomber's taking at third base now. Goswser is going to wait until he gets roach speed and baning speed, then launch this massive invasion. And one thing to note is that Bomber has kind of figured this out, right? Bomber's like, okay, I've seen a lot of roaches. I haven't seen the Evo Chambers. He's probably going to execute a big, massive attack. So what is Bomber doing? He's getting defenses ready. He's got a nice tank spread. He's got 1 bunker. I mean, the tank spread alone is a very, very good defense. His Marines are pre-spread out as well. Look at that. So the Banians will be less effective. And now he's even adding more bunkers. So he really has read the build correctly. He knows that Goswser is going for this mass attack. Now, one thing you want to do, if you're going to go for a massive attack and your opponent is ready, the odds will be against you, right? As we can see here, we'll unpause it now. When Goswser runs in with a great siege tank spread, the bunkers, even though they're not complete, they help tank some damage. And when it is complete, it takes a lot of baning hits. And by the time he gets through the defenses, he's out of banings. He doesn't have those speeding reinforcements, and the roaches alone, they can't quite deal with all the tanks, the Marines, the medevacs, especially when there's extra tanks coming in on the high ground. We can definitely say the attack was a failure, as right now, Bomber is ahead in supply, and which is extra bad because Goswser really delayed his upgrades. Bomber's already at 1-1. Bomber's even got more workers, plus the additional mules. Not looking good for Goswser. So let's actually take a real quick look at what he could have done to make that mass attack work really a little bit more effectively for him. So if your opponent is ready for you, right, as we saw in this game, what Bomber did is he really reinforced the area he expected Goswser to attack, and that was this area right here. He made a really nice defense. And what Goswser did... Oops, sorry, I meant to... Let me switch over to a different pen mode here really quickly. What Goswser did is he had a portion of units over here and a portion of units over here, and he attacked from 2 different angles, right? And the general rule is the more different angles you can attack from, the more spread out the defenders will be, the higher your success rate will be. Now, of course, you want to make sure that 100% of your units are participating in the battle. They're not some random guys attacking buildings or something crazy. But as long as they're all participating in the battle, the more angles, the better, especially for a Zerg versus Terran massive assault. So how could Goswser maybe have tried to work around the fact that Bomber was obviously prepared for this attack? Well, the one thing he maybe could have done, it might have made the attack a little better, is if he segmented off some of these units, right? And he sent those units around this way. Now, the key thing here is when he's attacking this location, he needs to wait for Bomber to react. If he attacks this location and then launches his massive invasion as he's hitting this location, what's going to happen? He's going to lose this battle even worse because he has less units in the fight. But if he waits, so that right when he attacks that location, he waits for a Bomber to reactively send a few of his guys to defend, then all of a sudden a Bomber's more spread out, which makes the siege tanks less effective, makes it harder for a Bomber to micro-ult his Marines against Banelings, harder to focus fire the siege tanks onto Banelings they want to focus fire, and then he launches a 3-sided attack on, switch colors. Well, 3-sided attack over on all these sections. It could be a little more effective. But the basic idea is if you want to launch a mass attack, ideally you catch your opponent off guard. If you can't, the odds are against you. The more different angles, the more you can get them to spread their army before you attack, the higher your odds of success are. But going forward, that attack doesn't do that well for Goswser. He's definitely behind going forward in this match, but it's not 100% over. Yes, he's down by 10 food. His upgrades are a little behind, but he does have pretty good creep spread. He is poised to make counterattacks if Bomber moves out, and he's got this 4th base going up on the left side. So if he can keep Bomber on the defensive for the next few minutes, all of a sudden he'll definitely be in a better position to contain Bomber to 3 bases. The key thing here is to deny Bomber from taking a 4th base and waiting for Bomber to mine out. Terran can build a very strong army off 3 bases, but if he can survive a couple onslaughts, they will mine out unless they can establish that 4th base. And on Planet S, that can be pretty tricky. So the next step here, Bomber, knowing that he's worried about counterattacks, doesn't want to send too much of his army in a different direction right away. He's doing multiple drop plays, right? He's sending a drop over here and a drop over here. As a Zerg player, how do you defend those drops efficiently? Well, what you do is you want to split your army up so you can cover all the angles. You can see that's exactly what Goswser is doing, sending a small squadron up to the top left. He also has the rest in the middle, and he's got a squadron waiting to defend the drop in his main. So as a Zerg player, you want to spread your army out to defend drops if you don't have the appropriate stack defense. And that way, you have units at the top. You might even have some, he has units to defend the 3rd base right here. And of course, he has the army to defend his main base right here. And he can reactively go to wherever the drops are and defend all the angles. Notice something else, though. At a moment's notice, if you look at Goswser's control groups, he still has 1 control group dedicated to his full army. The reason why is, yes, it's good to have units spread out at defending all these different angles, but what you want to be able to do is if you notice a mass invasion from the front, you have to be able to immediately group all your units to defend and squash that attack. So don't lose track of your army. Spread it out, but be ready to glob it all together, or at least maybe glob it in 2 parts instead of a flank, or whatever, however you want to approach the defense, but be ready to summon every unit if you need them to defend that massive attack. And that's really where it can potentially become a game-determining moment, is that you need to be able to summon all your forces up to stop that major confrontation. That's exactly what Goswser does, right? He has his whole army. ready, right? He split up to defend drops, but he sees the attack, and now he groups it up into 2 portions to really defend his counterattack. And look what happens. Bomber was winning this game, but now because Goswser was so ready to summon his army, Bomber didn't think he'd be. He thought he'd be spread out, but he wasn't. And so all of a sudden he squashes this attack, and now he's in a decent position. If you pause it right here, where are we at? Bomber just lost a lot of his siege tanks, right? Bomber's still slightly ahead in food. If you look here, though, his main is very close to being mined out. His natural is actually pretty close to being mined out as well. And his third base is actually pretty close to being mined out as well because the way he's been muling the third base so heavily. So if Goswser can just crush one more army after this, he'll be in a good position to deny the 4th base. That's what he's going to be looking to do. He's got speedings over here, and he has this base as his own 4th base. So what he needs to do now is back up and go back into drop defense. He just squash army, drop defense, deny 4th. So he needs to send some units. He needs to go back to spreading his army out to defend, of course, a drop there, as well as a drop in his main. Unfortunately, he gets caught up in the moment, and he sends a lot of these units here to attack this base. And then, of course, he's sending all these units back to the main. If you pause it here, he actually already has units coming up in the main. All these larvae here, that should be enough to stop. There's only 14 Marines. This larva should be enough, maybe with a few supplemental units here. But all these additional units that are coming down here, these need to go to save his 4th base because right now, this 4th base is what keeps him in the game. Right? If he can hold his 4th base and deny Bomber's own 4th base, he'll be fine. But unfortunately, he lost too many units here. These were the units that needed to save this 4th base. And then because he lost those units and because he's really focused on this drop, yes, he's able to defend his main. Yes, he still has a decent amount of drones. But when his 4th hatchery goes down, now he's stuck in a position where he's on 3 base to 3 base. Bomber's got a massive supply lead, and Bomber can go ahead and take his own 4th base. So we're just going to stop the game right here. It ends in about a minute, as you can see, from the fact there's such a supply difference. What's really important there is to know the game-determining moment was potential when Goswser grouped his army up and squashed Bomber's army. That's when he got right back in the game. And he had a chance to make an amazing comeback, but unfortunately, in the moments after that battle, he overextended a lot of his Zerglings, and he didn't reactively get back to that defensive spread the army out mode. So as a Zerg player, there's usually moments in a game. A Terran's going to do draw play, you spread your army out. Then all of a sudden it's going to be a big, important battle. You have to convert your army really quickly and squash that army. And then you got to go back to drop defense. You got to keep kind of cycling back and forth, back and forth. And Goswser just missed that last cycle, didn't defend those follow-up drops, lost his economic advantage in that 4th base, and that's what led Bomber to win that game. So wraps up the analysis on game number 1 between Bomber and Goswser. We'll take a short break. We'll be right on to game number 2.